Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I just checked if the mic was working. Let's chat. Today is going to be a strange video because I'm mostly going to talk without doing too much on the chessboard. There is a topic that has been bugging me for a while, and I really thought that this was as good a time as any to discuss this topic. I'm going to talk to you today about how to use the engine, or rather how not to use the engine. In fact, a bit of engine business is going to be the main topic of discussion today. I have made a video about it already in the past where I gave you hints about how to use in chess-base the Kibitzer function when you add the engine and you look at moves and whatnot. But recently I came across a problem that I wanted to discuss with you guys, because I think that it's quite beneficial, and without wanting to be self-serving, I think that the ideas that I'm about to pass on to you here actually have quite good value for a lot of people. And when I say a lot of people, I'm mostly talking about chess players of any level, really, below 2200 FIDE, or maybe a little bit less, maybe 2100 FIDE or thereabouts. So about 60-70% of people who ever touch a chess piece, maybe even more than that actually. So I'm talking to all those guys, especially those who do not have a coach, but even those who do have a coach. Recently I realized something that has been a tendency among a lot of my students, that I didn't quite realize that it was quite harmful. And definitely not useful at all. And that tendency is that anytime people play a game, what tends to happen a lot is that as soon as they finish the game, well, there are two things that they do. One of them is that they start a new one instantly, which is okay if you play for fun and not because you want to learn. If you want to learn, it's not really a good idea. But two, which happens equally as often, and in my opinion is just as bad, is that as soon as they finish the game, they click request an analysis and they go through where they went wrong. They find where the double question mark, then they go like, oh, hang on, there is a double question mark, I played that, and I should have played, what does it say, knight g5, oh yeah, of course I should have played knight g5. And this is the sort of process that takes place, and most of them either think that that was sufficient analysis of their game, and quite a number of these people who do this without actually consciously thinking it, or going through the motions, they think that learning took place. And nothing is further away from the truth than thinking that you learned anything at all by going like, oh, that was bad. What is knight g5? Yeah, oh yeah, of course, knight g5. Yeah, how could I miss that? There is no learning here whatsoever, or even if there is, it's a tiny minuscule fraction of the big learning and the big picture that could take place. It's a bit like me in classroom going like, oi, what's 27 plus 28? He goes, 89. I'm like, no, 55. Oh yeah, that's not teaching. There is no learning in that. I get a wrong answer. I correct it. They go like, oh yeah, of course. How could I get that wrong? There is no learning there. In fact, it's the opposite. It makes us lazy, because what this does is that it develops this habit, which I already described, that we play a game, request analysis, find mistake, have a look at the right move, move on. Nothing. There is not a single instructive moment there where we would go like, right, okay, so this was wrong, and I really should have noticed that. Whatever, like I could model really how learning takes place in a game of chess. This is definitely not the way, and this happens an awful lot, like really a lot of the times I do see this happening. And worst of all, then full games come back to me with full analysis from students, and sometimes people will contact me about their games that they want to know my opinion, and they already give me a full analysis, which is absolutely and exclusively based on what the computer suggests. And whilst the computer is definitely the best player out there, the computer is not a good coach. Not unless you really know how to use it, and the way how I just described it being used is an absolute cluster disaster. I need to drink to that. So what is my proposition? My proposition is that instead of doing what I just described to you, the best way to approach a game of chess that you just played is that the first thing you do is that you shut down the engine. If you really want to have the best learning experience out of your game, when the game is over, you start going through the game with the mindset, almost irrespective of whether you won or it was a draw, but especially if you lost, is that where did I go wrong? Without the engine. Because you don't want the engine to find it, because it will. That's what it was programmed to do, and God, it's very good at it. Your job now is to find out your own mistake. Not only that, but try to figure out why that mistake occurred. And this is where the computer is not going to come to the rescue. Because even if you do find out that you made a tactical blunder, and the computer shows you and rubs it in your face that, oi, bishop g5 here was a forced win of a piece. If you then go like, yeah, I missed that, there is no learning and there is no how do we move from here forward kind of thinking. Because then, unless you have a good coach who poses you the same question, you must ask yourself, why did I not spot that? And there are myriads of answers to this, which are all valid. I didn't think the position was ripe for tactical execution, which then triggers the next thought of, why didn't you think it was ready? Did you have majority in the area? Yes. Did they have weaknesses? Yes. So it means that your tactical awareness is not quite where it should be. So now you need to go and work on your tactical awareness, which means that you try to focus on picking up the clues that you are receiving in the game, the more pieces on the side you're attacking, the weaknesses, the exposed king, whatever. Now we got to the core of the problem, we can address it, we can move away and work on it. An engine is not gonna do 99% of this. The only thing it's gonna do for you is to tell you that you're stupid for playing that, instead you should have gone bishop g6. And if we go like, oh yeah, of course, that was a mistake, stupid me, next game, then we absolutely destroyed a beautiful learning experience. And let's face it, under 2100 FIDE, every single game is a beautiful learning experience. And again, I really can't emphasize enough that it's the next question that you need to ask that is really what is going to get you to the bottom of the problem. It's not the what did I blunder, it's the why did I blunder it. What was the reason why I overlooked this silly one move trick? And again, the answers will vary. They will vary quite a bit, but then we can address the problem. So if you don't have a coach, it's a very confronting process to go through, because you are exposing yourself and your own mistakes to yourself. And unless you are really strong enough to say, it seems like I'm really bad at spotting tactical patterns, time for me to practice tactics. If you don't have this really mature and open mindset towards your own faults, which a lot of people don't, and I don't blame them. It's very human to be trying to push away our shortcomings and focus on the goods. Then there will be no moving on. And you are more than likely going to commit the same mistakes in a repeated pattern. So it is very important to not to identify the mistake, although that is crucial too, but then to get to the why and then get to the how do we fix it. And I would like to show you here to model this a little bit again, although once again I couldn't really think about a good game, but I brought one up once again. The victim of my game analysis is a student of mine whose games I all the time analyze, because somehow he manages to produce games all the time that are just perfect material for my videos of all kinds. So in this position he plays rook g1, and although the computer indicates a massive drop in evaluation. You can see it on the side. There is no question mark attached. Not even a question mark, exclamation mark to indicate weirdness. So we are very easily going over a move like this, as long as we judge our movements based on our moves based on the question / exclamation marks they receive. There's nothing attached to it. Slight drop, fine. Computer says a3. Well, nah, rook g1, fine. And so we miss here a learning moment. The learning moment is that in this position we either need to play h4 or a3. a3 is a huge theoretical line, but I want to discuss h4. Rook g1 has no place whatsoever in this English attack. Clearly, the player who plays this doesn't know that. And the computer is not going to tell you this. Very unlikely, which is, by the way, why I think that learning chess by yourself with the aid of a computer but without the aid of a coach is one of the most harmful combinations one can possibly rely on. Because you are given filtered information in code. That's essentially what it is. You are not given the full picture, so you don't know what's going on, and even the amount of information you are receiving, or whatever you are receiving, is essentially written in Chinese Mandarin. And then you are trying to decipher this using a dictionary. Not really a good way to accelerate learning. This is why I think a coach there could make a difference. And I'm not blowing on my own trumpet. I'm not trying to drum up more students. I'm just saying that in my opinion, the fastest way to get from level X to next level, and let's face it, almost everyone who plays chess wants to get better, and I understand that, this is the way to go, because here we simply miss the point that h4, and then usually we chuck a bishop here, and then g5 is the way to go forward. And we take back on g5 with the pawn. Because here clearly student understands g4 with the idea of g5, but when it's stopped with h6, we don't think it deeper that, okay, so now I need to back it up. We go for g5 anyway, like this. Now that does get 2 question marks, so here there is a slim chance that we go like, h4 was desired. But again, what are the odds then that student recognizes that, hang on a second, if that's the case, then my rook g1 made absolutely no sense. So let's go back, because then, okay, it does make some sense because the pawn is pinned on h file, but bishop h3 is just so much better because then g5, g6 picks up on the e6 pawn beautifully. So there is almost no chance that this would be picked up. 99.9% we just go like, alright, I should have played h4. Once again, limited learning taking place. Okay, d4, fe4, bishop takes e4 double question mark. We play bishop c4 question mark. h4 instead recommended. Given how the game went, it's easy to pick up that queen c7 is the reason why this wasn't great, because now we are losing h2. And then we move on to another position that I wanted to discuss, which was extremely instructive later on in this game. Right here, student plays rook d2 double question marks. Now, to me, it's totally obvious, like really simple and super basic, that this is just utterly ridiculous to play rook d2 here when we have king b1. Now, you ask me, is there a tactical justification? And I'm like, I would be like, yeah, potentially there is, but just simply the whole idea of putting a rook in a pin voluntarily when I actually can just walk out of this whole mess is just mind-blowingly like, what were you thinking, man? But there is more to it, and this is why I really like this. Because after rook d2, the computer suggests that this is real garbage because of queen h6. And then I did what most people don't do, but even with the aid of the computer, it's quite hard to execute or really pursue such thought process. I went like, right, so what's the difference? What if king b1 queen h6? And then it turns out that the computer here suggests bishop takes e6. And now again we are approaching A beautiful learning moment, which is so easy to lose. Because right now, if you play out this line, again you ruined your learning. Because what I did here in this point, and I genuinely did go through the motions, like I wouldn't tell you if I didn't do this. I went like, right, so why does this not work with rook d2, queen h6, bishop e6? And I started to think. You know how long it took me to figure this out? More than 5 minutes. And I already cheated a bit because I did look at the computer's best move, but then I stopped before I would have ruined my whole learning. And then with my IM strength, which is nothing to write home about, but at least I have a vague idea about who is going which way, it took me more than 5 to figure out why king b1 here followed by bishop e6 is divine, and why rook d2, queen h6, bishop e6 is not playable. And I will show you. The super simple answer is that queen e6, bishop e7, and I don't have a good, really good follow-up here. In strong contrast, if we go king b1 here, then after queen h6, bishop e6, f e6, queen e6, bishop e7, I have got rook de1. And quite amazingly, e4 is bleeding out. There is no convenient way to defend e4. That is just mind-boggling stuff. And then I still went back like, right, okay, if that's the case, why can't I do, after rook d2, queen h6, bishop takes, bring the other rook in? I mean, that's a very valid looking question, right? And then I figured out that the answer was, of course, queen f4. This part I solved faster, because in contrast, if I go king b1, queen h6, bishop e6, takes, bishop e7, and rook de1, not g, and now you understand why, then after queen f4, I have got rook takes g7. And happy days, on your bike, I won. Now, you tell me, what are the odds of a player, let's say 2100 lichess, to figure all this out, or not to figure it out, to make it a learning moment like this, the way how I learned through the computer's aid. What are the chances of one would do this instead of going like, oh yeah, rook d2 was garbage, king b1, obvious. So now I am going to the repeating method, or rather repeating thing, where I just keep on saying the same thing, and I don't really want to go down in that rabbit hole. But I think I'm delivering a rather powerful point here, that there is a lot to be learned from our own games, and this beautiful tool called the computer evaluation and analysis is actually, unless utilized in an exemplary fashion, is not a helping aid at all, but it's ruining it really, really, really big time. So, to make this a very positive and constructive video, this is what I suggest you do. In my opinion, if you really want to develop your game, after you play the game that you consider worthy of analysis, you analyze it without any engine assistance at all. None whatsoever. Don't even look at the question mark, exclam mark, all that shebang. Do this, bang. Let me see if you can see this. Yep, I made the move disappear. You should do the same and just go through the motions, and where you think there was a valid alternative, stop, calculate, take notes. Like that. Especially for yourself. So if you are playing this as white, obviously it's not really interesting for you to find out better black moves. At points it may be, but in general you are looking for how I, or as in you, could have improved the game. And you just take notes, you write down exact lines, evaluations. And when that's done, then I suggest you do the following. And this is a really cool function of lichess, which I've always known it existed, but I never really made a theory about how it's best exploited. You keep the moves covered. And all you do is you play through the game, now with your analysis next to you, and you keep an eye on the side of the board right where the evaluation bar is. And anytime you see it drop or extremely go up, you pause. And you go like, right, something happened here. Let me just give you an example. Oh, G5. According to the computer, that's a lemon. But you don't see why. However, now in your analysis, ideally, there is a line there. If not, that's a learning moment now, because you go like, aha. So according to the engine, G5 wasn't right. I thought it was awesome. What's going on? Now again, you first try to figure it out without the computer. If you don't have a coach, then if you still can't figure out why G5 is a mistake here, that's when it gets a bit rough. Then you look at the line that the computer recommends, and you still try to work out yourself with the aid of the computer what the heck is going on. But only this way, in my opinion, are you exploiting the tremendous learning potential that your own games provide you for free. You play, you analyze, and even after that, you go through the whole game, and every time the bar drops a lot or goes up a lot, you go like, looks like computer doesn't like me taking that. First of all, I wonder why. Is there a reference here in my sheet? Oh yeah, I wrote down that I think here after Queen A5, I would have been rather dead. And I also made a note that for that very reason, I should not have taken this. What should we do instead? Nothing in my notes. Okay, well, let's think. Then you come up with an idea, you write it down, and then you compare it with the computer's recommendation. And ta-da! Now we are the ones producing the content. We are the ones coming up with evaluations, or at least partly along with the engine, and we are the ones who then go like, right, this wasn't good, let's see what I can do instead, as opposed to, oh yeah, that was silly, rook f4 was better, done. Nah, not gonna help. And it is so easy to fall into this, because the computer's evaluation is right there for you. It's one mouse click away. It's so tempting to do. It almost feels foolish not to check and see what the blunders were. But if your goal is to learn, you can't do that. And I actually have a very powerful example to show it to you. Unfortunately, I stupidly closed down that game, but I will find it for you. It was actually something that popped up yesterday during coaching, and that was partly the time when this whole idea sort of was conceived in my head. Just give me a second. It may not have been yeah, it was this game. So a student is playing a Caro-Kann as white. We're going through the game and opponent plays knight d5. You can see an instant jump in the evaluation, but I don't want to reflect on that now just yet. And as we go through the game, we get to this point. And I'm like, as soon as I see this, I said during the coaching, that's not right. That, in fact, has to be losing. Word by word, I'm quoting myself. I didn't even look at the eval. And student goes, why are you saying that? And I go like, well, look, for the following reasons. Black is uncastled. Knight takes d6 wasn't really a major threat. I mean, I would consider it. But in the grand scheme of things, worse things can happen to black far worse than that. It puts the bishop here that can be kicked out with a tempo, but more importantly, after the trade, this knight is loose. I can score a huge tempo here and a huge tempo here on that knight, and these two centralized monsters seem to be quite potent. It doesn't feel to me like black should survive this. And then I proposed to my student Queen A3 here, and I felt like a genius. Sometimes I do, because now wherever the knight goes, I have knight D6 on your bike. And I'm like, that's why. I didn't see any of this, but it just felt to me that bishop b4 was not right. And then we also established with student that in fact queen g3 is equally or perhaps even stronger here, with various ideas of taking key castles, losing to knight d7, queen d7, knight f6 check. That's quite cool, and this is just making things from going bad to worse really for black. And also if they take, fe takes back, and now knight d6 is just going to be terminal. And so I was really proud of myself, and it was a really awesome educational moment because I didn't know that this was a losing move, but as soon as it popped up I said, nah, that's not right, there has to be something here, and it turned out I was right. And now I will show you the computer's response to this. Look at this. Knight e4, bishop b4, the bar went up this much. Student played, instead of bishop b4, which is best, c3, second best move. Out of 1,000 club level players, 998 would go over this moment without even a hint of questioning either move's value. And as soon as I saw it, I'm like, no, that can't be right. And in my opinion, in this case, and I really don't want to blow my own trumpet, it is an excellent demonstration of my chess sense, which in this case is spot on, which is something that you really need to develop by playing thousands of games and analyzing and going through thousands of games. It really is something that is, in my opinion, not really learnable. It's just you pick it up as you go. A lot of chess players I admire for such chess sense. Anthony Miles, and I always quote him on this one, used to say that chess is a feel. And I feel when I see bishop b4 that something is not right there. That should be killed. And I really try to train my students to develop this feel that when something weird happens on the board that is just like has this aura of being wrong, to be able to pick up on it without even, and more importantly, before calculating a single line. And in my opinion, that's a humongous learning opportunity there, and I'm very glad that I did this with my student, and I explained to him, although I insist it's not really explainable, the main cues of why I thought that this was not right. The exposing of the knight, the king still in the middle, the various tempo moves with the queen, it just all added up into something that I thought would be far more than unpleasant for black. You miss this 100% if you just go through the motions, because there is not a single even question mark, exclamation mark, the bar hardly moves. Like, you don't stop for that much movement of the bar, and yet this makes the position from quite bad to borderline lost. And imagine how many moments like this would you have had in your past 200 games that you played. That would have been entirely missed and insanely valuable learning moments lost. So, to cut my very long story short, this is, in my opinion, why learning with the engine is dangerous, and I hope that I modeled what is my opinion is best, which is analysis on your own without engine, then compare your analysis only with the eval bar, and at the very end, at the absolute end, when you check your lines or the lack of your lines against the fluctuation of the eval bar, is when you open up the game analysis and you actually look at the lines. Now that's when real learning will take place. You will say, yeah, but that takes forever. Yes, learning does. So if you want to become a better player, well, guess what? You need to put the hard yards in. It's not going to happen like this. So unfortunately, it's a price that especially those who don't have a coach will have to pay. And on that note, I'm going to round this up. I'm very actually excited to hear what you guys think about this, because I think many would probably feel a little bit confronted. Many will probably feel that they strongly disagree. So please comment below. Don't forget to like and sub, please. And I will be back with more soon. Thank you. Bye.